Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. This is another one of those that I kind of put on myself because I've been sending out some feelers trying to find some more diverse recommendations for my indie list. And so this time we're going for some neurodiversity. The book is The Exoskeleton Chronicles by Chad Descouteaux. This is an Autism Own Voices recommendation that I'm really happy I have. But the problem is that while the rep is there, the genre will probably turn a lot of people off. This is one of those books where you really have to like that whole shtick to like this thing. Now, as you might be able to tell from this cover, we have some giant bugs because this book is filled with giant mutant bugs. It is a very schlocky sci-fi in the realm of those old 1950s creature feature flicks, and a couple of them are even referenced in here. So you really have to like schlocky sci-fi, but I loved it because I love that kind of thing. So this is all about a pest control expert named Jeremy who has been struggling with, I believe, Asperger's is what they call it in this book, although there's the whole debate of, is it a thing or is that just part of autism? They refer to it in this book. There's a couple different characters that refer to themselves as Aspies, so I'm just gonna go with it. So Jeremy, his father left a while ago and went off to do some things, and Jeremy, who once loved bugs, turned to hating them when he saw that in his mind they stood for everything that had torn his family apart. Well, one job that he takes on ends up being more than he bargained for. He ends up getting caught in a hotel that is being overtaken by giant man-sized bugs with guns. And one of them wears a cape. And that one with the cape has a whole backstory, and I was laughing while I was reading it. I loved it so much. Now, there is a lot of emphasis on Jeremy and his struggles and needing pills for his anxiety and that whole thing, as well as his old crush also ending up at that hotel, who now has a child and an ex-husband who also gets involved, and Jeremy finds out things about his father who is more involved in this than he thought, and things about himself, some very big twists. And like I said, this is one of those books where you're really gonna have to like the genre, and I have heard next to no one talking about this kind of genre on BookTube, so I don't know how popular it would be. But it also talks about things like how people who are on the autism spectrum often will have to take naps after doing anything that requires a lot of socializing, or how they'll have what this book calls safe people, or a safe person where they're relaxed and more free to be themselves. And it was really interesting to find out all of that stuff and how much it fit. It also, and I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, showed up in the writing style. Now, I think normally I probably would have clocked a book for this kind of thing, but it had a lot of those flat out telling you things, like, you know, a character would smile or a character would nod, and then the book would tell you that means. But because a lot of it is through the lens of an autistic protagonist that thinks like that or thinks something similar to that and is written by someone on that spectrum, I forgive it a lot more here, because in this book it doesn't feel accidental. It doesn't feel like lazy writing. It feels like a very purposeful stylistic choice. And there's also like some random parts where you get a ton of information on back characters that goes nowhere. Like there's the woman working at a restaurant that you get like the entire backstory behind her family, and she's gone after that. And not exactly sure what the point of that was. There's also Elaine, who is not as high on as much. She doesn't struggle from autism as much as the protagonist does, but she still has some aspects of it, and she is a total badass. The moment I saw her like running through the hotel and grabbing a gun and like going to kick ass in her pantyhose feet, like, yes. It was so good. But that brings me to the one major problem I had with this book, and that is how it describes its female characters. Now, yes, Elaine is fantastically strong-minded and strong-willed and is willing to do whatever it takes to save her son and to, you know, fight back against evil giant bugs. But at multiple times, the narrative tries to remind you that she hasn't lost her baby weight from giving birth to her son. And it's not just like the character of Jeremy thinking about it. Like the narrative multiple times when it's just her, or like one of the villains might be watching her from a screen and it'll be brought up, or there's other characters, other female characters that'll be labeled as hot in a way that none of the male characters are. I think Jeremy's like physical appearance, aside from his smile, isn't really talked about until like the literal very end. So it felt a little hinky that we're like trying to remind you, oh, just remember she's still chubby in some areas, like that. There was no point to that. And it rubbed me the wrong way every time it popped up, and it was multiple times. So that's why I couldn't give this a full 5 stars. But in general, I loved this for what it was. I believe there is a second book, but I'm not sure if I want to continue or not, because this one, like, yeah, it does have this setup, but I also kind of just, there's only so much super schlocky sci-fi I can take, and I don't know if this premise has a lot of legs to stand on moving forward. And I have literally said before where I might love the first in a series, but I'll think that book is enough and I don't need to continue. I've done that with a couple before. So I'm on the fence whether or not I would review the second one. I haven't made up my mind yet, but again, if you like super kitschy, schlocky, 1950s-esque sci-fi, if you're not grossed out by gigantic bugs, which admittedly is probably what's going to turn a lot of people off to this. But if you go into this knowing what it is and taking it with a grain of salt and knowing the silliness that is inherent within this genre, as well as some more serious parts, I think if you're that kind of reader, you'll really like it. But again, I'm not sure. And again, I'm going to find this one day. I keep trying to look for like that perfect sci-fi to introduce someone to the genre, because it can be hard to just jump right in. This is not it. This is not it at all. This might be a turnoff for people that even like sci-fi. Like if you go into sci-fi primarily liking like space operas, you're probably also not gonna like this, because this is very much like an urban sci-fi, if that's even a genre. I have no idea. But in general, this was exactly what I was looking for when I saw the cover, exactly what I thought it was. But it's really nice to see that classic schlocky sci-fi gets some awesome, accurate neurodiversity put into it. So I'm really happy with this pick. I'm really happy that I have another Own Voices neurodiverse book to add. I am hopefully going to get more Own Voices diversity in my indie recommendations moving forward. It's something I'm genuinely like seeking out to find. And I've got some more coming. I've got one Own Voices Asian rep that I think is Chinese, I believe, that I'm really looking forward to. So stay on the lookout for that. Unfortunately, still closed. Still working on it. I am so close to having it at a more manageable level, but I'm really working to the point of I don't want to get my levels down just enough to get open and then have to close in another month. I really want to make sure that it's very manageable and that I can stay open for a significant amount of time, because I don't like being closed. So, with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.